So now, when Yitzchak willed himself dead on the altar, he died. Which means his lower ruach went up. When he came down again, his higher ruach came into his body. Which means for the rest of his life, Yitzchak is walking around with an otherworldly awareness. He knows as sure as he's sitting there, that there's a God who supervises everything. He sees the direction, but he doesn't know the particulars. He doesn't know precisely how the way in which God wants the world to go or any situation to work out. He doesn't know precisely how it's going to come about, but he knows for sure that God is the Sibash of Kol HaSibas, is the causes of all causes. Therefore, it's a strange thing about Yitzchak. Nobody in the whole history of Judaism does God say about him, I am the Elokai, I am the God of such and such a person.
While they're alive.
Because the pasuk says, Hein bikdosh lo yamani, that God doesn't trust even his holy ones. It would be bad if God would say, I'm the God of somebody, and then 10 minutes later that person sins.
Wow.
So that God doesn't call himself the God of anybody until that person is good and dead. Except one person. Yitzchak is the only person. God says to Yaakov that I am the God of your father Yitzchak. While Yitzchak is still alive. Wow. So there's a kind of movement from this world to touch base with our source in another dimension. And when we do that, we're not even aware that it's happening. You know what it usually happens in great states of joy, in ecstasy. When we truly reach an ecstatic sense of joy, then we lose all sense of self, even self-awareness. And when we come back from touching base, in other words, Buber said there's I and thou, right? I pray to God, thou. But in the state of ecstasy, then the I and the thou merge together. And at that point, I don't know that I'm happy. I don't know that I'm close to God. I don't know anything. Because I totally have relinquished my ego. I don't have any sense, not even a sense of self-awareness. But when I come back, the impression of having been there remains with me. And I somehow can nurture that impression to new insightfulness, new security, new sense of things, right? Wow. Awesome. That's a tremendous thing. And so, but with Yitzchak, he went there, and he brought it back with him forever. And I don't want to take up too much more time, but I should tell you that Yitzchak is a very strange person. He's the strangest of all the avos. You can actually think that he's out of his mind sometimes. Because Yitzchak knows, there's a pasuk that says, that the Lord your God will bless you in all that you do. So now comes that controversy. Does all mean everything or anything? So if you say it means everything, it's like saying in English, God blesses those, God helps those who help themselves. The more you help yourself, the more you do, the more the blessing. But if you're a Kabbalist, you can get the biggest blessing from just the smallest little act of doing anything. The biggest blessing can come into the smallest act. So now, just to give you an example, and there are many more examples. One example, I'll end with this. Hey, Yaakov is trying to steal a blessing. He comes into Yitzchak's room, and Yaakov says to him, so, who are you? He says, well, I'm Esav, your son. He talks to him a little bit, he says, okay, come here, I want to bless you, give him a blessing. Then he starts over again, who are you? So he says, well, I'm Esav, like I told you the first time. Right? and I brought you this food, and so maybe you want to eat it. So he eats it, and then he gives him all the blessings. Well, he smells something. Whole thing, also smells something. But the question, there's two questions. First of all, what was the first blessing you got? Nobody said. He blessed himself.
Wow.
Right? What was the first blessing? And why, after he gave him the first blessing, did he ask him a second time, so who are you? So Yitzchak, don't forget, has the Ruach D'Eli'eva, the upper spirit, living with him in his body. He knows everything he wants from God. So now, you understand, if you're Yitzchak, and you're a reasonably intelligent person, well, he could call in Rivka and say, who is this? But maybe he doesn't want to do that. She'd lie too. But you know what he could have easily done? He could have said, I don't want to bless you until your brother comes home. And then you're both here. But he doesn't do that. Because Yitzchak figures whoever this guy is, God put him here. Maybe it's Esav, maybe it's Yaakov. For all I know, it's a third guy who's more deserving than the daughter, right? Now, how can I straighten things out? So he gives him a blessing. He says, who are you? He says, Esav. He says, okay, good. Be blessed. You shouldn't have any more indigestion. Right? He gives any blessing to what? Because he knows that if the guy's a phony, all he heard was that I promised to give Esav a blessing. I never told him what the blessing is. So I give him a blessing. Shame. Now I ask him, who are you? A second time. Because I figure like this. He doesn't know what the blessing is going to be. So I just blessed him. So he figured he got what he came for. There's no more reason for him to lie. Right? So if he insists he's Yaakov, good, okay, I'll eat what he gives. And then he smells the thing, and he sort of, that gives him some more assurance that he smells the reich of Gan Eden. But bottom line, he's not really totally sure who he's blessing at any point. Wow. It could be it could be his son, Yitzchak, it could be Esav, it could be some third person. I just know that God is, because Yitzchak is B'chol HaShetasa. He believes I have to do a little bit to get what I need. But the biggest, greatest blessing can be drawn down to the smallest thing. And sometimes the more we work on trying to be what another person thinks we should become, or what our mother said we should be, or even what we expect of ourselves, maybe we work too hard. Maybe living in the moment is just to sort of let our heart, being guided by the principles of the Torah, sort of be open enough and trustful enough to do the right thing, rather than to be afraid of what happened yesterday or what might take place tomorrow. See ourselves from this higher, out-of-body place, living in the moment in the vastness and totality of God's goodness.